This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
In the moment, in the context of the gathering, how do you just at least check maybe 42% of your judgment and see if you can do something different? See if you can respond differently to the way that somebody is handling things or deciding what they're going to say or eat or wear or parent. It's really okay for you not to be in that place of judgment. It really is okay for you to let it go. It's hard.
Welcome to Season 8 of Flusterclux with Lynn Lyons, where we talk about managing worry, anxiety, and all the other emotions too.
I'm Lynn Lyons. I'm an anxiety expert, author, speaker, and mom. I've been a therapist for 35 years, and I'm still in the trenches with families, helping them navigate daily struggles and big problems. Parenting can be a flusterclux, but we tackle the serious stuff without being too serious.
I'm Robin. I'm Lynn's sister-in-law and co-host, and I'm here to ask your questions.
And I'm Ed, the producer of Flusterclux.
And my brother.
And my husband.
Anxiety is a family problem with a family solution.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, Robin.
So we're getting really close to the holiday season.
We are.
A time of year that keeps therapists in business.
Or a time of year that therapists go on vacation. Take your pick.
Right. Even though you actually have always said May is like a really busy time, because people can't really get appointments in December.
Right. And a lot of people don't want appointments in December. So around the holidays, oftentimes I'm not that busy with clients because people say like, oh, let's just wait until after the holidays. Like I hear that all the time. You know that phrase like, oh, we'll wait till after the holidays. Yeah, as we know, it is a busy time and a intense time for a lot of people for a lot of reasons.
Obviously, if you had an adult population, talking about dread about family gatherings of the holidays would probably come up more like in November and December. What about your kids? Do they ever stress? Do the kids you see and do the families you see together indicate stress about the holidays?
No. I mean, the good thing, I think, is that kids tend to be fairly oblivious to all of the adult stuff. For the most part, there's something really extreme, like if Uncle Frank always gets drunk and passes out and, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, the things that drive adults nutty around the holidays, kids seem to be fairly oblivious to.
There's just so much distraction of other things.
I mean, kids are naturally kind of self-centered and they're really thinking about the events of the holidays, not really the relationships of the holidays. I mean, the relationship they're most concerned about is the relationship that has to do with, depending what holiday you celebrate, what's in it for me. Like kids really tend to be fairly self-centered during the holiday. And we do things to try and talk about the meaning of the holidays and being generous and being giving and grateful and paying attention to those that don't have what we have if you're in a position of being able to give and that kind of stuff. So there's great opportunities for teaching. How do we step outside of our own excitement about what we're going to get? I think like the honest truth is that the way that this whole thing is promoted to kids is that it's all about what am I going to get?
Just as a side note, we're family. So we celebrate Christmas together, actually. And I do like that the way our family celebrates Christmas together is a departure from what I grew up with. And I'm not sure what you all grew up with in the same way, but I came from a family where the process of buying and giving and wrapping and filling a room with stuff was a way to avoid uncomfortable conversations, right? Like that was just the family pattern. And as a little kid, the stuff was really exciting. But by the time I was a teen, it wasn't so great, actually. I didn't like it. And then when we gather with you and your family, we play games. And we kept saying the message to our kids, it's not about the presents, it's about being together and having fun with family that we don't get to see all the time. And the message eventually sticks. So like my kids look forward to playing games with your sons.
Right. I know. We have fun. And I think that that message of how do we be together and how do we celebrate connection and love and fun and playing, that's what I like about it. That there are a lot of people who say, oh, I so much prefer Thanksgiving to Christmas because we don't have all the gift stuff. You can make your Christmas similar. If what you love about Thanksgiving is that people are standing around together and chopping vegetables and whatever. So you can do the same thing at any holiday, really. A thing that I'm always interested when I'm talking to families about the holidays, and certainly talking to adults more than the kids, is that it seems that most people want the same thing. That nobody would say like, oh, I don't want to have a holiday where we do fun things together and laugh and play games. People don't say that, but they just don't almost have the ability to make it happen. I think we get caught up in, well, I have to do this and I have to do that and we have to buy presents. There are some people who truly love buying gifts for other people and finding a wonderful gift, and they love that gift giving part of it. I get that. Also, can I just tell you that, you know how you get certain algorithms that hit your Instagram feed or whatever? For some reason, Instagram has decided that I love watching kids get puppies for Christmas.
Yeah, I get those too.
Oh my God. I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, I should have got my kids a puppy for Christmas. Like everybody's crying and oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. I'm totally getting hit with military parents coming home and surprising their kids nonstop. I'm getting that, and puppies for Christmas.
That's a doozy for we criers.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's interesting that here you and I talking about connection all the time. I think it's important to say, like, we kind of walk the walk. Like, that's the holiday that we created. And that's the step that we've taken to do it. It evolved to this, where I think we're like pretty into the gift giving thing, not really being a showcase. And it's hard when your kids are young.
Right. All our kids are out of the Santa Claus years. So now we can do it. All our kids are out. And so it is harder if you have little kids, because then everybody talks about, oh, that's the magic of Christmas and it's fun. And they have these traditions where they put out the cookies and all that kind of stuff. Our kids are out of that. We also do the funny gift giving where we just do the Yankee swap, or the, what do they call it? Not in New England, the white elephant or something like that.
Right. We do gag gifts and things as well.
And that's been really fun too.
I have a friend who's not got a lot of family around at all. So the holidays are actually kind of repeatedly a challenging time because the lack of other people to celebrate with becomes an issue. So it's just their family, and it sort of feels like another day in a way that it makes my friend sad.
Oh.
Well, she does something to take care of herself, and she figures out what's an adventure they can go on that is something that they all look forward to. And even sometimes she says, maybe the adventure is more what I look forward to, but mom's happy. You know, it trickles down and it creates a spirit of festivity and things as well. And then I have other friends who I think have big family gatherings where they show up and they get very reactive to the dynamics in the family and need to create barriers with that too. We've been in all of these different situations. So even though we have this nice little simple Christmas, I thought we should talk about judgment today.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's talk about judgment.
One of the things that comes up a lot in my work when I'm planning big multi-gen vacations is that a lot of clients say, I can't share space. I can't share rooms. I don't want to be in a home rental with my siblings and their kids because of how they parent, and it's so different from ours. And I think that that's a very universal thing for a lot of families. And I think that when parents are choosing different choices and we're all thrown together, it makes us on the defensive, on the offensive. Let's talk about that and try and strive for like better experiences.
Yeah. And I agree with you, that dynamic. It's even when people talk about going on group vacations, not even with their relative families, but when families, a bunch of families decide they're going to rent a place together. I had some friends several years ago that I think they bought a house together to all share at a ski area. or rent at a skier, I can't remember. It did not end well. It was really difficult because when you take different beliefs, different approaches, simple things of different foods and different bedtimes, and you put them all together, inevitably the judgment shows up. And as I say all the time, because when I'm talking about social anxiety, parents say, oh, they're not judging you. I'm like, yeah, they are. We are a judgy species. I mean, I love the idea of let's get rid of judgment. And then I also live with human beings on planet Earth.
Let's tame judgment. How's that?
Yeah. And also, here's the thing. It's more of own your judgment. And how do you recognize that you judge? And how do you take responsibility for your own judgment? So let's just take an example. You are at a holiday gathering with your family and you've got a relative, they're vegan and you're carnivorous and they're not going to eat the turkey. So you judge them, you say things or you do things, or you just feel superior in your judgment.
Can I tell you the joke your brother, my husband, always says?
What?
How will you find the vegan at the family dinner? Oh, they'll tell you. And I just want to say that I have been vegan many times in my life, actually. So I have got nothing against the dietary specificities because we've seen them all in our family.
Well, that's the thing is that why are you taking it personally? That's the interesting thing. Like if somebody doesn't want to eat turkey, that's not an insult to you. We should ask the turkey how the turkey feels. Maybe the turkey is really offended that you're not eating it.
Well, the vegan would say the turkey's offended because he's dead.
Yeah, right.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
I had the time of my life. I never felt this way before.
From building timelines to assigning the right people and even spotting risks across dozens of projects, Monday Sidekick knows your business, thinks ahead, and takes action. One click on the star and consider it done.
And I owe it all to you.
Try Monday Sidekick, AI you'll love to use on Monday.com.
Hey everybody, it's Ophira Eisenberg from the Parenting is a Joke podcast. Let me ask you a question. Are you multitasking right now? Oh yeah, commuting, working out, school drop-off or pickup, crossing things off on your never-ending to-do list. But what about checking in on you? Therapy can help make that part easier. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow Therapy makes it simple. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can get started in as little as 2 days, and if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments, just therapy on your time. So whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/parents today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/parents. One more time, growtherapy.com/parents. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
I don't think many people really know exactly what's going on with their money. I mean, how much do you have in that 401k? Are you getting the best rates on your CDs? Do you have some money just sitting in a savings account or a checking account? It's hard to keep track of. We all want to feel organized and confident with our finances, don't we? Monarch is the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean interface on your laptop or on your phone. And right now, just for our listeners, Monarch is offering 50% off for your first year with code Fluster at monarch.com. One of the things that I discovered recently is that I could be doing so much better with a few of my investments. And there was a 401k from a previous job of my husband's that I had forgotten about. If you are interested in maximizing investments, increasing your savings rate, if you really want to figure out how to do the best with your money, then you need Monarch because it's built for people with busy lives. It links all of your accounts in minutes. You can get clear data visuals. There's a way to categorize your information about your spending and give you real control over your money. Fights about money are one of the top reasons relationships fall apart. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code FLUSTER at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FLUSTER. Okay, we're back.
One thing that I've learned about when you parent differently with friends, and if you had a friendly relationship with siblings, with the little kid stuff is tricky, because if you're like, we don't give our kids sugar, you sort of care very much about that belief. You have to be a little flexible, and that's when you pull out the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, we feed our kids the things that matter to us. 20% of the time, we probably can't. But so I took a road trip with my best friend and her kids and my kids. We have very differing diet views on what to feed our kids. And at that time in our lives, I was still very low sugar with our family. And sugar was like a special treat for the kids. We fed them sugar. It's not like we were extreme. It needed to be something nice, a special treat, and we wouldn't let them just snack on candy. So we made a joke of it, and I said, could we have a safe word between us? like we were some sort of like BDSM couple or something. Like, I need a safe word when we're going beyond my comfort zone. And I can't remember the word, but it was a ridiculous word, which made us laugh, just even saying the word.
Yeah.
So we're getting in her minivan, and we're pulling out, and then she like finds these gummy fried eggs, and we haven't even gotten out of the driveway, and she's handing her kids the gummy fried eggs. And I'm like, penguin, 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 or whatever. The thing is, we said it and we kind of made it a game, and she laughed and was like, okay, I'm going to take these back and we won't be snacking on gummy fried eggs. And that was a really, I think, a good solution with friends, but with family, it's always trickier.
But what I love about that solution is that you just talked about it up front. So you knew that this difference might come up and you came up with a plan. So say we go back to the vegan example, there's going to be turkey on the menu or prime rib. So the vegan person can say to the host who's serving the prime rib and the turkey, hey, just to let you know, I just want to remind you, I'm vegan. I'm going to bring some really fun vegan recipes for people to try. And please don't worry about me not eating the meat. It's totally fine. And let's just not even have to bring it up as a topic. Like, you say something ahead of time, because what happens is the judgment is very covert. It becomes very passive aggressive. People sort of join teams. So it comes up with food a lot for sure.
I hate to say this, but you know what we're actually really talking about? And I didn't realize this when this conversation started, Lynn. But now let's talk about the family with the anxious child who's all in with accommodating. And they want the world to accommodate as well.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up right at that moment, because I paused because I was trying to think of a situation that wasn't food related, like sugar and vegan and that kind of stuff. And the thing that popped into my head was sharing. So that same kind of kid dynamic of your child doesn't share with my child.
Right. But let's talk about this in the context of accommodations. So say you have a kid who is really afraid of dogs and is on the t-ball team. And you're so focused on eliminating dogs in the path of your little t-baller that then you say to the team, nobody bring their dogs to games.
As has happened.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it goes well to say, I'm vegan, and so we're all doing tofurkey for Christmas dinner?
Right.
Would you do that?
Right. You wouldn't do that. But that's a good analogy. So then it becomes tricky, because say you're going into your cousin's house and they have a lovable but rambunctious dog. They have a friendly mutt or a friendly labradoodle that licks everybody's face. Is it appropriate for you to say to your cousin, hey, Sophia is really afraid of dogs, and we need to make sure that the dog isn't there because it's going to really freak her out. So we have to make sure that during our holiday gathering, the dog stays away from her. Now, the person hosting the party might say, oh, for the love of Pete, right? We got to accommodate. But is this the hill you're going to die on that day? Does the host say, well, now's the time for your child to learn about accommodations and to maybe work on some exposure therapy? And so at that moment, sometimes if it's an ongoing pattern, if this child comes to your house all the time, et cetera, but I don't know if that holiday gathering is the time to say to this parent, by the way, your child is anxious, you're accommodating this behavior, and we're going to work on some exposure.
Right. So when you say work on some exposure, if we put it in layman's terms, what you'd rather see happen is that you'd rather see the parent of the anxious child about dogs say, we're going to go to Aunt Lucy's house, and she has that cute little dog, Snoopy. And Snoopy's very friendly, and it's going to be a great time for us to practice being around dogs and practice petting dogs. I personally, I don't know what you think about this, but I would say that to expect, depending on the age of the child, it might be appropriate to say, like, we're excited to give little Charlie here practice with Snoopy, Aunt Lucy, but we want to take baby steps. So do you think it would be okay if you put Snoopy away for part of the time and then we want to get practiced, so that they interact together?
Sure, because again, then you're just talking about it openly. I think the situation that becomes the most challenging is that, say you've got somebody in your family that's anxious. You've been working on it with your kid. Let's just say there's a listener listening that's really been working on dealing with their child's worry about certain things. Maybe it's loud noises, maybe it's dogs, maybe it's cats, whatever. You're going to be together with some family members. There's another family member who has kids who are anxious, and they're doing it. And I'm making air quotes, but it's the truth. They're doing it all wrong. So you found a thing that you're working on. You found religion, so to speak. You're like, oh, I've seen the light. We're not accommodating anymore. We're doing things step by step. We're really making progress.
We're strengthening skills.
Yep, we're building skills, and we feel really good about what we've been doing, and we've been making progress. And then you're going to go over and you're going to see your cousin, Samantha, whose kid you can look at and say, oh my gosh, that's where we used to be. Or I totally recognize those patterns, and they're doing it all wrong. And so you're seeing them accommodate. You're seeing them say, hey, everybody, just so you know, Trevor gets anxious when people blah, blah, blah. And it drives you crazy. This is where your judgment is going to be right there. You are going to judge. You are going to internally want to roll your eyes. You are going to pay attention to how this family is doing it incorrectly. And because you've been working on this, that avoidance begets avoidance, and that they're way into the content, and that they're expecting everybody else to accommodate. You can see all the mistakes they're making, and it's driving you crazy. How do you handle that situation? Because you're going to judge.
You're going to judge, but I don't think you can do or say anything where anyone will be better off. With the exception, here's one thing I would say, though, and maybe you agree or disagree. If the mom who accommodates says to her sister or sister-in-law, wow, little Timmy seems to be doing really well. That's great. Then you just say something like, yeah, we changed our approach and it's been really effective. Here's this book, Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents, that was very useful to me. Don't say anything else.
So perhaps the rule of thumb is that you do not offer unsolicited advice.
Right.
If somebody is curious, we could go back to the same veganism, right? So somebody says, hey, I've noticed that you're not eating any of the turkey. How did you make that decision? I have a cousin that they are vegetarians, and I'm totally down with that. I'm trying to go in that direction, not perfectly, but I totally believe for health reasons. And so I asked them, how did you guys make this decision? What were the factors that went into this for you? And that opened up a conversation. And they were very willing to talk to me about it. And it was a very interesting conversation. And nothing they said was very surprising to me, but I was just curious about it.
Well, that's the Ted Lasso mantra. Be curious, not judgmental.
Good old Ted. I would say you're going to be judgmental. Just own your own judgment and pay attention to what you're doing and saying. And don't offer unsolicited advice. And sometimes, if we go back to the example of the anxious kid versus non-anxious kid, it could lead to an interesting discussion later on with your anxious child who's been working on things, or when you go to your next therapy session with your kid, that you say, wasn't it interesting at Christmas how we saw Samantha and Tony? How do you think they were helping Trevor deal with his worry? And so you can be observant about it. It's just hard not to be judgmental. I feel like it's pretty impossible, but it's what you do with that judgment and how you communicate that judgment and how you are curious about what they're doing and maybe how you learn from other people's patterns and mistakes. We had Jessica Leahy on a few months ago, probably now. I don't know. I lose track of time. But wouldn't it be interesting if you went to a family gathering and what if somebody in your family was allowing the 16 or 17-year-olds to drink sips of wine at Christmas dinner, or that there was a New Year's Eve celebration and the family approach was, well, as long as you're home with us, even though you're in high school, we're going to allow you to drink. That would be a really interesting position to take in front of me. And I would be hard pressed not to say, hey, do you know the research on that? But how do we manage that? I mean, that would be a really tricky one.
Yeah, you just brought up the AP version of that, because that's where I think a parent who knows the research and wants to protect their kids from alcohol exposure and prolong it and delay it as much as possible.
Yep.
Which most parents would come to that conclusion after listening to that episode with Jessica Leahy, because the data supports that.
Right. The longer you wait, the less likely, in pretty dramatic ways, the less likely you are to develop substance use disorder. So the whole myth of, well, I'm going to help my child learn to drink at home, what you're really just doing is helping your child learn to drink. That would be a tricky one. How would you handle that one? Can you do that without judgment? There is no way I could do that without judgment.
That one is such a tricky one, because if you were to try and have a conversation with the sibling who wanted to say like, oh, it's just like in Europe, another myth. It's just like in Europe, the kids drink at the table. Another myth you should listen to Jessica talk about. You know, you can't have that conversation. You have two different parents who have polar opposed views on something. I could imagine there are some parents who say, we're not coming.
Yeah, I could imagine that. I could imagine, say you are going to go and you are bringing your teenagers. I could also imagine saying ahead of time to your kids, just so you know, your cousins are allowed to sip wine at dinner. Here's why we don't allow that. Here's why that's not a good idea. We're going to go and have dinner with everybody, and your grandparents are hosting, and we know that in many ways this can be a lovely time, but I have difficulty with this. I am not going to say anything about it, but I want to be very clear that I strongly disagree with this for these reasons, and it's not going to happen for you. I mean, I think you can say that too. You can really lay it out for your kids ahead of time. And you could say that with other things too, but I would take a pretty firm stance on that. And I would also use it as a real good learning opportunity to educate your kids about it.
Do you feel if that had been the case? I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I think this one's really tricky because obviously I'm not an idiot. I know that when you have teenagers, you're trying to help build skills at home that help them not feel pressured into drinking with their peers. But there's just something that's even really tougher and more uphill when they're watching their family and their cousins around them do this.
Yeah, but if we think about it as an opportunity, so one of the things we know with the research is that the more kids practice using their no muscle, the better they get at using their no muscle. We want kids to disagree. We want kids to be able to express themselves. We want kids to be able to reject certain things within a family context because that actually serves them well later on when they're dealing with peer pressure. Or you could take the stance that we're going to go, you're going to see some different ways of handling alcohol, and we're not going to participate in that. I think that if it's a real problem for somebody in your family, or if maybe you yourself are working on staying sober, you're in recovery, or your spouse has been working on it, I think at some point it does become appropriate to say, we're not going to come to this event. We can't come to this family gathering because the use of alcohol is right now in complete contradiction to what we're working on and maybe struggling with, whatever words you want to use. Do people like when you say that? Absolutely not. Do people who are doing things like it when other people don't do them? It happens even, we can talk about it with alcohol. It happens with accommodating anxiety. When somebody says, hey, I'm not going to accommodate the anxiety anymore, the other people who are accommodating anxiety get pissed. So the judgment goes both ways. You may decide that it's just not, in that case, it's just not something that you want to expose your kids to. But if your kids are old enough, or maybe even young enough, because the more we start talking about this early on, if you've got 10-year-olds and they're watching their 17-year-old cousins drink wine at Christmas dinner, you can still have that conversation with a 10-year-old. I would actually think that would be a pretty great idea to do.
It would be really great idea to do. I would also say a lot of parents have a hard time talking about this kind of stuff with their kids.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you say that if this was the family pattern and family habit, but you didn't talk to your kids about it, what do you think the outcome would be?
Well, then they're watching their cool cousins drink wine.
Correct. And they're watching their cool aunts and uncles promoting it.
Yeah.
It's really tricky. We could come up with all sorts of really tricky scenarios. And yeah, that's a really tough one. I'm not sure how I would handle that. And I have friends and family who really enjoy their drink. And I can imagine if I had that conversation with them, how poorly it would go.
Yeah. I can imagine it too.
It would go very badly.
It goes very badly because people get very defensive.
They'd get very defensive and they would say, can't we just all get together and enjoy each other? Can't you leave this alone?
Why is this got to be such a big issue for you? You're always blah, blah, blah. People get defensive for sure.
Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Okay. Winter's coming. I can already feel myself getting dry inside and out. It is so important to stay hydrated. And you know what? I have a hard time just getting in enough water during the day. That's where Drip Drop comes in. It is proven fast hydration. It's got 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading sports drinks. Over 90% of top colleges and pro teams are using Drip Drop's science-backed formula because it's engineered to rehydrate you faster and more effectively than water alone. And it actually tastes delicious. They have 16 original flavors and 8 zero sugar options. It fits seamlessly into my workout, into having my water during the day. I just love it. To make it easier, Drip Drop has flexible subscription options too, so you're never stuck without proven fast hydration. Use it on the job, at the gym, just these cold and dry winter months. You'll always have Drip Drop on hand. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code Flusterclux. That's dripdrop.com, promo code Flusterclux for 20% off. Stock up now, dripdrop.com, and use promo code Flusterclux. All right, it's starting to get chilly out. The holidays are getting closer. Comfort becomes the best gift of all. And Quince has layers that last, everybody. Sweaters, outerwear, everyday essentials. They feel luxurious. They look timeless. They make holiday dressing and gifting effortless. They've got $50 Mongolian cashmere sweaters. They're made for everyday wear. How about denim? Never goes out of style. Denim's in again. But did it ever go out? You've got silk tops and skirts that add polish to your holiday wardrobe. And if you live in a cold place like me, you want down outerwear that's built to take on the season. I've already got my hands on the Whistler high-rise thermal legging. Fantastic, cozy, great for my cold, chilly walks in New Hampshire. And a lightweight, down packable puffer hooded jacket. There's a great light blue color. I got the navy, but selection is fantastic. So step into the holiday season with layers made to feel good, look polished, and last. From Quince. Perfect for gifting or keeping for yourself. Go to quince.com/fluster for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/fluster to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/fluster. All right, it's the time of year. We've got sensory overload everywhere, but one feeling we're still chasing, it's cozy. And Bombas has the socks, the slippers, the tees, basically everything you need to be as cozy as possible. Bombas makes socks that I wear every day. In fact, I'm looking down at my feet. I'm wearing them right now. Every time I go to the gym, I've got on my Bombas socks. I use them for hiking, for walking, for lifting weights. And you know what else? I bought this Bombas bra. Who knew? It's fabulous. It is comfortable. The fit is amazing. Bombas makes gift giving easy. So, what do you get your son's girlfriend? What do you get your friend that you work out with every day? What do you get your father-in-law who's really picky about whether or not his socks feel itchy? Bombas is the place to go. And we haven't even gotten to the best part. For every pair of Bombas you purchase, Bombas donates one to someone facing homelessness on your behalf. So anytime you get something cozy, someone else does too. Head over to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/audio, code AUDIO at checkout. Okay, so now back to the show.
Lynn, I want to go back to that Ted Lasso quote, be curious, not judgmental. And I want to ask you this. Couldn't you say that being judgmental, it's like a blame pattern? Some people they go to the blame pattern way faster than others. Some people go to judgment way faster than others too. So I hear what you say of like people going to judge, haters going to hate, of course. However, I still feel like there is some work one can do. Picture a whiteboard in your head and the judgment statement. You wipe it away and train yourself to move to a place of curiosity and ask questions.
Right. And those are the how questions versus the why questions. Remember, why questions sound very judgy a lot of the time. Like, why are you not eating turkey? Versus, hey, how did you make the decision to go vegan? I'm curious about that. If you can begin to be curious and go into it thinking that you might learn something, or that you're also just going to be respectful of somebody else's point of view, then the defensiveness tends to go down. And let me be clear, there are certain people that you do not need to have this discussion with. I think that's the other thing too. You do not have to bring this up. This is not the hill you have to die on. And one of the things, if you go into a situation where you know that there's a family member who does something that you're rolling your eyes at, or you're saying to your partner, oh my gosh, we're going to see my cousin and she blah, 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 blah. Just make a deal with yourself and with the people that you're going with that you are not going to look for opportunities to judge, to backstab, to be passive aggressive, to roll your eyes. The goal is not to seek out opportunities to be judgmental and harsh, and see if you can just almost play a game of asking interesting questions of people about things that maybe they want to share with you, or learning about a perspective that maybe you could be curious about. I am not perfect at this, and I've talked about my mother-in-law, and I've talked about Thanksgiving and the games I play to tolerate the stuff that she does that's very difficult to deal with. I get it. I totally get it. I can be super judgmental. And so this is a challenge for me too. How do I go into a situation in which I can be more open and curious rather than walking in ready to judge? Because it is easy to find things to judge. It also feels very satisfying to judge. It feels good to gossip. It feels good to judge. It feels good to criticize. It feels good to put yourself in a superior position. how do we just knock that down a few pegs?
I just want to bring up an archived episode that we did. So when it comes to your mother-in-law,
Yeah.
so I know a little bit about her and other people who've been listening. Your mother-in-law is not someone that you're going to ask a lot of how questions with. There are those relatives that are going to be difficult. The engagement with them needs to be minimal, shall we say.
Superficial, baby.
Superficial and minimal. And you did an episode on dealing with difficult relatives. How do you sort of make a game knowing who they are and how they're going to show up? You have a sibling or an in-law or whatever that you're getting to know. Come to it at a place with curiosity.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of things, like people show up with all sorts of different views of the world. And maybe you've got a relative who's shows up and has got some piercings and you're like, hey, those are new. How did you make that decision? Or maybe you decide that you're not going to bring it up. It really is a matter of, in the moment, in the context of the gathering, how do you just at least check maybe 42% of your judgment and see if you can do something different? See if you can respond differently to the way that somebody is handling things or deciding what they're going to say or eat or wear or parent. It's really okay for you not to be in that place of judgment. It really is okay for you to let it go. It's hard.
Here's the incentive. Instead of judging, if you are curious, you may interact with a person in your extended family and have a really nice connecting conversation.
In a way you've never had before.
Exactly.
Yep. There are things about a person at a family gathering that you don't know. There are things about their life or things about their interests or things about the way that they are moving through the world that might be interesting for you to hear and actually might be very delightful for somebody to talk about. Maybe nobody's really asked them about that before because everybody's been so judgy. And so that could be a really nice interaction for that person as well.
If you come to my house on Christmas and I ask you a how question, the jig is up.
All right. If I say to you, hey, how did you decide to wear those pants?
Our goal will be to get through the holiday without asking how questions, because I know what you're up to.
Maybe that'll have to be our safe word. How? Thanks for listening. And if you found this podcast helpful, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other people find this information.
And if you'd like to dig deeper on any of these topics, we have specialized playlists on our Spotify profile, and the link is in the show notes. Topics like teens, depression, and OCD. Bye, Lynn.
Bye, Robin.
Rinse takes your laundry and hand-delivers it to your door, expertly cleaned and folded. So you could take the time once spent folding and sorting and waiting to finally pursue a whole new version of you. Like Tea Time You. Or this Tea Time You. Or even this Tea Time You.
So did you hear about Dave?
Or even Tea Time You.
So update on Dave.
It's up to you. We'll take the laundry. Rinse. It's time to be great.